Hey friends, my name's Georgie. It is such a joy to welcome you to the Just Breathe podcast, where I'll be talking all things breathing to help empower you guys to use the power of your breath to harness your bodies and minds. In today's powerful conversation, I'll be chatting with Laura Lam. Laura is a registered nutritional therapist and functional medicine practitioner who helps individuals regain control over their health. Having suffered from IBS herself for a number of years, Laura understands how debilitating digestive problems can be to everyday life. After revolutionizing her own health through her own personal research and clinical training, Laura is now on a mission to help other individuals regain optimal digestive health. I had no idea how much digestion was linked to all aspects of health and that the food we eat impacts every single chemical reaction in our bodies. Me and Laura got talking about the relationship between stress and food and our relationship with food in general and how that aligns with our self-worth and confidence. I really did not realize how aligned our digestive system was with our emotional bodies and how much of an influence it has on our mental health. Laura and I's conversation was really powerful and insightful, and I walked away with so many insights that really got my mind ticking about what I put on my plate. A little bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Just Breathe podcast. Let's keep on building that strong breathing community. The more people talking about breathing, the more people becoming empowered by the breath, the better. All right, let's dive right into today's powerful conversation. I really hope you enjoy it. This is episode 41 of Just Breathe with Laura Lam. What's up, Laura? How's it going?
Hi, Georgie. I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm awesome, thanks. Nice to see some sunshine. British summer has arrived at last.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been raining for a long time, I feel.
Yeah, and I saw you walking out in nature earlier. All looks beautiful.
Yeah, I just thought I'll take the opportunity to get out because I've been indoors for the entire week and
Yeah.
It's soul destroying. I really need some time outside. And
it changes your mood, and we'll get onto this later, but all of those different things you can do, being in nature, going for walks, it changes your food cravings and all sorts, changes the way you eat and your sort of concept of reality, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. People do say that if you bring the outdoors indoors, it has a positive effect on your stress response. So even if you get fake plants, not even if I live in a flat, so it's probably, and I'm out all the time at the clinic, so it's really tricky for me to become a plant mum, and I'd love to have lots of plants, but I just don't have time to look after them, and they'll probably die on my watch. But yeah, even having fake plastic plants around, it calms you down because it feels like you're outside. Apparently there are some
the colors, it's the stimulation, I suppose, isn't it? For sure. But I want to dive right in terms of getting to know you a little bit better and how you got into nutrition and particularly got into gut health, because I know before we started recording we said we want to talk about the stress response and how that relates to food, our digestion, our overall health. Of course, that's very relevant to the practice I do in breath work in terms of regulating the nervous system and finding balance there. But what's your story? How did you get into this field? Where did your journey start?
So my journey started like 7 years ago. How old are we now? I can't remember. Such a long time ago now. I left uni in 2013 and just realized, I don't really want to do what I studied. So I'd always been into nutrition. My whole life has been built around food because that's like part of my culture being Chinese.
Yeah.
So it's been there all the time. And I always had a really good relationship with food, and I ate really well, but I didn't really study it until I left uni. I did a free course on Coursera. It cost me nothing whatsoever.
No way.
And I just relearned the basics of science. So back when I was a child, I really enjoyed science, but I left that to do something in economics. But after doing that refresher course, I realized, oh wow, this is really interesting to me. So I went down a rabbit hole and ended up studying nutritional therapy with BCNH in London, and I never looked back since. And I realized that I had suffered from IBS myself. So gut health was a huge problem for me. So I had a lot of bloating, lots of sensitivities to different foods. So I'm talking about abdominal pain, bloating, gas, even feel symptoms like feeling like you've got the flu. So I used to have symptoms to foods like eggs, gluten. I actually don't eat very much gluten now because I understand, like, even if I eat too much of it, I do feel those symptoms again. So gluten, dairy definitely doesn't agree with me. So I started to learn the relationship between the foods that I was eating and the symptoms that I was feeling, and then I just connected the dots. And ever since then, I've been just super fascinated with the gut. All the bacteria that's in there, that's my favorite thing about the body. It's just understanding the relationship between the microbes and us, and how that has an effect on the way we feel.
Wow, I love that. I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, I've just started to sort of go down this rabbit hole of course, being interested in biohacking. You start to become very interested in the nutrition side and health optimization. And it's such a huge topic. I find I get quite overwhelmed when I start looking into it. And even, you talk about micro and macronutrients and trying to understand it all. I suppose you need to have self-compassion with yourself, don't you, to sort of say it's okay not to understand everything straight away, like just making little changes bit by bit. And I definitely put too much pressure on myself to sort of, completely revolutionize my entire diet and my entire way of eating straight away, whereas I think you have to be patient with yourself. Do you find that?
Yeah, absolutely. I studied for like 6 or 7 years, so if the normal person is trying to wade their way through the internet to find their perfect diet for them, like it is not easy. There is so much information on the internet, and we have an information overload, which makes it even harder. And that's the thing with what I do, is like I help individuals find the perfect diet for them, because I've got all this knowledge, but most other people don't have the time to study a course, or they don't really want to go into that profession, and that's absolutely fine. But they do want to optimize their health and optimize their own diet for, I don't know, whatever their reason for is. So it might be like body optimization, so like weight loss goals, weight gain, or even to optimize their hormones, gut health, if they're having problems with their digestion. There's just so many reasons why you would optimize your nutrition. So I guess that's the reason why I do it. And
and that's why you have a coach. I suppose that's the benefit of having a coach, is that rather than sort of guessing, which you can guess for years, can't you, to just have someone with that knowledge and hand over sort of that job to someone else to hold your hand through it to optimize your health has enormous benefits, because sort of keeping up with it and keeping to show up to create a new habit is hard enough, but to have to figure it all out on your own as well, there's no wonder that a lot of people fail at the first hurdle.
Exactly. There are so many people yo-yo dieting. They've tried paleo, they've tried keto, intermittent fasting, and it's just like, it's really hard for them to stay on track, because at the end of the day, there's just so much information coming at them. They don't know where to focus. But if we could just focus their attention to what works for them specifically, then they're more likely to stick to their plan and make long-term changes. So
for sure. Now, I know we sort of want to go into the relationship with stress and the gut. So would you mind delving a little bit into that? I know I'm really interested as well, because nutrition is not just about food, is it? There's a lot of other lifestyle factors that influence the way your body digests food and your relationship to food. So would you mind going into that just a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So we live in a day and age where we are hyper stressed. We've got so much going on. It's just crazy, isn't it? We're always working, always
Overstimulated all the time. Yeah.
overstimulated. That's the word I was looking for. So like on looking at our phones and just constantly stuck to the internet, it is crazy. So when we need to digest our food, we need to go into a state of calm, a relaxing environment. So that's called the rest and digest mode. In layman's terms, it's also called the parasympathetic nervous system. So we need to activate that in order for our digestive system to be ready to break down our food, so to produce things like stomach acid and digestive enzymes. But often we find that people are not in that state. They're not ready to digest their food. So if they've had a really busy day full of meetings, constantly in their fight or flight response, which is the parasympathetic nervous system, you're on edge. Your body is not ready to digest your food. And historically, as cave people, we would have, our stresses would have been this saber-toothed tiger that's trying to attack us. So we need to either fight that tiger or run away. So that's what our body has been evolved to do. However, we're no longer having a acute stress like a tiger. We're having constant stress, and it is either our our work. It might be scrolling through our Instagrams as we eat. It's a pandemic of overstimulation of information, and it's a problem. The problem with scrolling through our phones when we eat is that when we're looking through our screens, our bodies are still stimulated, so we're still not ready to digest our food. And the reason why we do need to be ready is because we need to help our digestive system produce of those chemicals so that we can break down our foods and extract those nutrients so that we can absorb them and do that properly.
And what is the sort of result of continuously staying in this state of stress whilst you're eating? What is actually going on there in the body? Did you say the nutrients are sort of just bypassing the body without being absorbed?
Essentially, yeah. So if we're not producing the digestive enzymes and stomach acid to break these foods down, the food remains in our gut. So I don't know if many people know much about the gut. So we're kind of like a huge human donut. We're this big, basically, because yeah. So if you just squashed us down with our gut, our gut is like this one long tube which starts, I guess, from the mouth and right down to our anus. So that's your food going through your body, and through that journey, it needs to be broken down into tiny molecules, and then it needs to be absorbed. However, if it's not broken down properly, you can't absorb it into your bloodstream. So when that happens, if those foods remain in your gut, your bacteria that resides in your gut, and now we know that there are trillions and trillions of bacteria in our gut, and some of them are good, some of them are opportunistic and pathogenic and can cause some problems. When the food remains in your gut, your bacteria can ferment and cause gas production because they munch on the food instead. You eating the food. So yeah. And so that gas production can lead to things like bloating, cramps, diarrhea, constipation, whole host of digestive problems. So we have a huge problem in society with IBS, and so many people are suffering.
Yeah, and I read somewhere that London is the most constipated city in the world.
Oh gosh, I'm not surprised.
Due to emotional stress and due to never switching off, constantly being on the go. So what you're saying makes complete sense, and it's fascinating because then breath work and nutrition actually go hand in hand, and 100%. It just shows how much of a full circle the human body is, that many people approach health, and I'm sure you find this, I certainly find this with breath work, in sort of a one vision, one-sided approach where they're saying, right, I'm going to work on my nutrition now.
Yeah.
And it's that you can't optimize your nutrition unless you bring your nervous system to a place of balance and regulation, coming down from that adrenalized state of fight or flight and coming into that parasympathetic state. It's called rest and digest for a reason.
Yes.
Right? I mean, I'm interested to know as well, in terms of what we actually put in our mouths, in addition to being in a state of calm when we eat it, how can we optimize our gut health in that way? What kind of things do we need to be eating if we're looking to really take charge of our gut health in particular?
Well, I would say it really depends on the person. But firstly, because I believe in personalized nutrition, I don't think one diet or one food or one type of diet fits everybody. But the first thing I would say is ensure that your food is cooked.
Right.
So there is humans have evolved. There is a theory that humans have evolved into the highly sophisticated beings that we are, with the large brains that we have, through cooking food. Because by cooking food, we break down cell walls of plants, which makes the nutrition from the plants easier to digest and extract. Same with animal protein or any type of protein. So that helps us with the cooking process. By breaking all of that down, all of the nutrients are much more bioavailable and we can use it straight away. So if you are stressed and you are trying to digest a bowl of raw salad, all of those, if you're not producing enough stomach acid and digestive enzymes because you're too stressed to do so, it's going to be really, really tough for you to break down that food, especially with raw vegetables, because plants have really robust cell walls, and as humans, it's taken many years for us to evolve into the state. We just don't have such a robust digestive system as, say, for example, our ancestors did, or primates do, because they have a much more of a very raw diet. And you see, like, cows have 4 stomachs just to digest grass. We have 1 stomach, and we can't do, we eat such a varied amount of plants. But cooking food is really important, just so that it gives our digestive system the best chance of breaking down as much as possible.
Right. So cook your food, especially your vegetables as such. And in terms of fruit, how does that work with the sugar and the fructose, etc.?
Yeah, so fruits, wouldn't worry too much. So as I always recommend that people limit their fruit intake, because historically fruits would mainly be available in the summer. So you wouldn't eat that throughout the year. I tend to recommend that people stick to maybe 2 fruits max a day.
Okay, so that's busting a myth already of the 5 fruit and vegetables every single day.
Yeah, it's a misconception, actually. So yeah, because fruit has sugar, and albeit that the fiber that coats the fruit sugar is fantastic and it helps us curb the blood sugar response, it doesn't mean that we need to eat 5 different fruits a day in order to meet our 5 a day, right? We don't need to eat that much sugar. It was like our ancestors would have. They would have foraged for different fruits, but it would mainly be fruits that came up in the summer. You don't really get very much fruit. I'm not a gardener. I'm not very good at knowing what fruits are in season, but you wouldn't get fruits in the winter. So you wouldn't need to eat that. So exactly. So I think it's important to just limit the amount of fruits you have, but focus on vegetables and cook them.
Okay, so in terms of eating seasonally as well, how important is that? Because I know I've been looking a lot into the menstrual cycle, and I've seen a lot in terms of seed cycling, in terms of eating different kinds of food through the different phases, or some people even call them the seasons of your menstrual cycle. How effective is that, do you think, living cyclically, one with your menstrual cycle, but also living seasonally with the different seasons of the year?
I think that's really important. I think it's That's yeah, if you can do it, definitely do it. But I think because different types of vegetables and fruits, they grow more optimally at different times of the year. And especially if you're going for organic fruits and vegetables, that we are definitely optimizing the time that they are being harvested and
Right.
grown. So they're grown at the right time at the right place during the year.
Yeah.
However, if it's not accessible, because I understand that a lot of people that we are seeing as clients, they don't have so much time to deal, to check the seasons and ensure that they're all in the right, they've come from the UK or whatever.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't worry so much, but also be mindful of how far your food has traveled. So if you're having, like, I don't know, avocados that have come from I have no idea where avocados come from, but wherever, they've traveled a long way, and they might have to spend a lot of time in transport, and you've got to think about the bacteria or any chemicals that are used to, preserve the freshness of those vegetables, or fruits. So yeah, that has an impact.
So local is better. How important is it to buy organic? I know that's a big conundrum a lot of people have in terms of, it's so much more expensive. It's that, I guess it's a big investment in yourself. And then people ask themselves, how important is it? It's almost a question as well as, why are we so poorly educated in terms of these details of why organic is so important? I've now tried to only buy organic for my fruits and veggies because I've done a bit of research on it and actually realized it's so important. But in your opinion, where's the line there? How important is it? Should you buy everything organic? Is it only some things? What do you do?
I personally try my best to buy everything organic, and that's due to several reasons. So I want to minimize my exposure to the pesticides and herbicides that I'm using conventionally farmed produce. So that's one thing. And I know that those chemicals have been found in studies to cause and contribute to major diseases. Pesticides and herbicides are carcinogens. And I mean, we might be having tiny little doses in our foods, but over time it builds up and it accumulates in our body, and that can have profound effects on inflammation and different effects in our body. So that's one reason why I avoid conventionally grown produce. But another thing, the reason is because of the environment. So pesticides that they can with like intensive farming, it depletes the nutrients in our soil. So yeah, we already suffer from very nutrient depleted foods because we've been over farming for decades.
Right.
And it's I just want something that is as nutritionally optimal as possible for my own body. But yeah, I understand it's more expensive, but at the end of the day, are you going to? It's all about redistribution of income for me. So I know that there are plenty of people who have more than enough, income that can afford it. However, they don't really have the mindset focused on optimizing what they're putting into their bodies. They might be putting their money in other commitments, which is absolutely fine. But if you would spend X amount on a meal out, why not spend X amount on your food that you're eating on a daily basis?
Yeah, it's crazy when you zoom out and really think about it, that, health is everything. If you haven't got your health, you haven't got your focus, you haven't got your energy. It's kind of like trying to build a house on a puddle. It just won't work. And that the foundation has to be strong. The same in terms of breath work, which is why I'm so passionate about the breath. And we breathe around 24,000 breaths a day on average.
Wow.
And I think of every single breath as a chance to make a choice that are you going to invest and optimize in your health in the terms of awareness, in terms of optimization, regulation, or are you going to ignore and stay in ignorance and continue to distract yourself with these sort of surface level wins, which are false to a degree because they are synthetic things that provide happiness in a moment, but they don't provide longevity. They don't provide what everyone's actually seeking, which is to live a full and happy life. And so it makes no sense to me why people wouldn't invest in their diets, why everyone isn't investing in some sort of nutritional guidance. I mean, I don't know why nutritional guidance isn't in schools more, in a
It's me.
yeah, in a more sort of detail. I don't know why there's not a whole module on it in science. I know it gets covered briefly, but I think that's certainly an area that needs up leveling in the education
100%,
system.
especially with like growing children that need the optimal nutrition and brain to fuel their brains so that they can learn as much as possible. And when they're kids through to their late teens, they need to be optimally eating so that they can grow into, you know, incredible individuals that they will be.
Step into their potential. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's really important for us to educate our children in schools, because that's where they spend most of their time. But I think it's mainly down to a lack of funding in the public sector, which is really sad. And you know, I see you hear about doctors and nurses in hospitals eating junk food.
Yeah.
But then, you know, these people are, you know, on the front line, they are saving lives all the time, and they need optimal nutrition so that they can do their jobs properly. How come
it's completely such a paradox, isn't it, of just counterproductivity? And it's where we put our focus, and it's all about intention and awareness, I suppose, isn't it? Is your intention to have a quick fix, or is it to have long-term health? Because that takes investment, it takes awareness, and it takes commitment, and you have to show up for it. But it's so incredibly worth it. I want to ask you, I read or heard of a book, I actually haven't read it yet, it's on my list, called Depression Starts in the Gut. And I'm wondering what knowledge you have on the relationship between the emotional body and gut health, how that is linked, and how much of an effect our gut health actually has on our mental health. And I know it's very, very interlinked, but I wondered if you could sort of divulge a bit more on that.
Oh yeah, there's so much emerging research about the gut health and mental health at the moment. So there is a nerve called the vagus nerve, and that basically connects your brain to lots of different organs in your body, but it is the main telephone line, if you like, from your gut to your brain, right? So any chemicals that are produced in your gut can be sent through through your vagus nerve to your brain. So that's really important to keep your gut happy, because if your gut's happy, then your brain will be happy.
Right, that's interesting.
Yeah, so with your gut, actually, that's where you make most of your serotonin, which is your happy hormone. Your serotonin is not actually made mostly in your brain, it's made in your gut. So if your gut is not happy, and you know you've got digestive issues left, right and center, you're always bloated, you're not going to the toilet very often, you know, if there are serious food sensitivities and intolerances, then there's going to be a lot of inflammation in your gut. So think about all of the inflammatory chemicals that would be produced from those sorts of processes, and that's going to go straight and sent by your vagus nerve to your brain, and that's going to cause inflammation. So
now we're talking about cortisol here and all of those things that cause stress, that cause that more sympathetic response, that can again cause those adrenal glands to become overstimulated, and to the point that then obviously it just goes full circle again, that IBS, the depression, the anxiety, the whatever, it's all so linked to what you put in your mouth, right? And a lot of people don't make that link though.
No. If you're producing a lot of cortisol hormone, especially throughout, your cortisol should follow a curve like that, or I'm going to go that way because I don't know what way my camera.
That should go up and then go down for anyone listening to just the audio.
Exactly. So so if you're constantly stimulated through your sympathetic nervous system, you're going to be acute stress is really good for us. Actually, it's very anti-inflammatory. However, if you're dealing with stress on a daily basis, you know, you've got a high powered job, you're in meetings all the time, you're going to be stimulated, and that anti-inflammatory response dies down. It's not going to be so effective over time, and you end up with more inflammation, and that can lead to inflammation accumulating all over your body. I mean, I don't know if the readers or listeners even would know what inflammation means, but basically that's inflammation is a process that happens in the body, and it's a normal process. And like if you were to cut your finger, the redness that comes from that's called inflammation, and it's
right.
normal. However, too much inflammation is not good for the body, and it is the premise for so many chronic diseases like depression, anxiety, which are inflammatory diseases at the end of the day.
Man, but why don't we know about this? Like, why is diet not then at the forefront to fight mental illness rather than, and I must say, I'm not against antidepressants. I think that's very important to say. They are very useful for many people, but why are we hearing more about antidepressants than we are about things as natural as shifting your diet, shifting your lifestyle habits, shifting these fundamental things that can radically change your quality of life? But people don't hear about it.
Yeah, I think it's a sad situation that we have. I think it's partly down to research. It takes a long time for research to be conducted, but also I think apparently it takes like 10 years for the medical community, or for
it to trickle down the
catch up with the research.
Down the line.
We've known about things like leaky gut, which is intestinal permeability, as a condition for decades, absolute decades. Yet there are still doctors and medical professionals that are denying that this condition exists. It's
what?
Yeah, it's really worrying, actually. Leaky gut is such a problem for people with autoimmune diseases, with people with even with mental health problems. IBS is huge with leaky gut. There are so many different conditions that can benefit from a optimized digestive system. Yeah, it's not common knowledge. But yeah, no, I would really, really like to see more focus on the diet, because we don't need to, if we can help more people from the beginning stages of the disease manifestation by helping them optimize their diet and lifestyle, we wouldn't need to prescribe SSRIs. It's just, it could be prevented and could be unnecessary.
And how long does it take for a disease to manifest? Of course, it's, there are so many variables and it is per person, but on average, what's that kind of time span?
That is, that's an impossible question to answer. Really? It really depends on person to person. It might take, 1 year, and some other person 2 decades. It's really tricky to understand. People have different lifestyles, they have different diets, they have different pressures, they have different genetics. There are so many different variables that could
but I suppose the point here is that preventing chronic illness in those early stages is incredibly important and beneficial for any individual.
Absolutely. I think that needs to start from when a child is in the womb, honestly. It starts from we can start from way back when. I mean, with women who are pregnant right now, I think it's really, really important to optimize their diet so that their fetus has the best chance of, growing into a healthy baby and having a healthy life from there on.
I mean, and what does that actually look like in context? Obviously, those terms are thrown around so much: optimizing your diet, optimizing your gut. What is that? Where do we start with that? In terms of, where do you start with clients? Is there a best place for people to begin, or a certain habit to change? Because it's not easy, is it, to sort of change your entire relationship with food? It takes time and nurturing. So where do we start with that?
That's a really good question. Most of my clients that come to me will have some sort of symptom that they're dealing with. So maybe digestive issues, maybe they're suffering from a severe bloating, maybe that anything they eat is causing some sort of bloating, and it's making them feel really uncomfortable with their bodies, and uncomfortable overall. So there's always something that's causing that those symptoms. But I think it's, even if you don't have any symptoms, you've got to think about the food that you eat are the building blocks that you use to produce, repair all of the different cells in your body. There's that saying, you are what you eat. And that is really true, because what else are you using to build your cells? It's certainly not like the information that you're reading on the internet. It's the food that you're eating, right? So it's really important to optimize that and have plenty of vegetables, good quality protein, good fats in your diet as well. And I can't stress enough the importance of good fat. But you need all of these building blocks so that you can make great skin cells, good muscles, great hair, everything, hormones, your red blood cells, neurotransmitters. Absolutely everything in your body is dependent on the food that you eat. So why not optimize your diet?
And when you're talking about good fat, could you go into that a little bit more? What does that mean?
So good fat, there's been over the last 30 years, there has been a lot of bad press with fat. So way back when, they all said that fat was bad and it contributed to X diseases like diabetes and heart disease and stuff like that, which is, it is important to note that fat can build up of plaques made from especially with things like cardiovascular disease and atherosclerosis, very long word, atherosclerosis. So that's where you have a blockage of blood vessels, and that can cause strokes and heart disease and stuff like that. So that's where the whole fat war came about. However, fat isn't actually the enemy, and there are different types of fats we need to be aware of. So there are saturated fats, unsaturated fats, monounsaturated. There's lots of different types of fats, and we also have the fatty acids like omega-3, and we know that is a really good source, a really good type of fatty acid, and that comes from fish mainly. We've got omega-6s, which are slightly more inflammatory, so we have to look, keep an eye on those and not eat too many. So that might come from your deep fried foods, or more inflammatory oils like that, like vegetable oils. And then you also have omega-9s as well. So there are lots of different types of fats out there that we need to be aware of, and it's just about balance. I mean, a lot of our components in our bodies, such as all of our sex hormones, our steroid hormones, and even your cortisol hormone, your stress hormone, they're all made from cholesterol. So if we're saying that cholesterol is so bad for us, that we shouldn't, we should minimize it as much as possible, then what are we going to make our sex hormones from?
Right. And what's an actual example in terms of food of good fats?
Good fats, avocados, coconuts. You can use organic butter. So I always stress the importance of having organic meats and organic dairy if you can tolerate it. So with organic and grass-fed meats and dairy, the fat profile is a lot better. So there's rather than the highly saturated fats that you might get from and inflammatory fats that you might get from conventionally farmed animals, from organic and grass-fed meats, they actually have a really good anti-inflammatory fat profile. So they contain more of the conjugated linoleic acids, which can help to contribute to a healthy fat profile.
Okay. So fats are really important.
Yeah, it's important to have a decent amount with your meals every day. Have a half an avocado with a meal. Avocados are fantastic and they're great in the summer. Cook with things like coconut oil. Drizzle your salads with extra virgin olive oil, maybe some almond oil. There are lots of ways to get it in.
Awesome. If you had to crush one food taboo or one diet taboo, what would it be? I'm sure it's hard to pick, but It definitely just crossed my mind with all the things you're saying here, how much BS is out there in terms of diets, food, rumors, things that you hear are going to be quick fixes. So if you had to crush one of those, what
Oh,
would it be?
there are so many. There are so many. So I, on the topic of fats, I think I would crush. There are two actually I want to mention.
Okay, go for it.
I want to mention the fact that veganism is healthy. Right?
Okay, that's a big one.
This is a big one. It is a big one. Now, I definitely think eating more plant-based is really, really important, right? It is so important to eat more vegetables. And I personally eat, I'd say 75% of my diet is plants. So
Right.
all for it. However, 100%, 100% plant-based might not be so good for us. There are so many nutrients that we can get from animal protein, and I respect that a lot of people avoid animal protein for ethical reasons.
Ethical reasons.
Absolutely fine, and I'm completely all for that.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm not for people saying that it's 100% healthier than eating meat, because there are so many different variables. Lots of people have different lifestyles, different genetic makeup, different demands. So it can't be healthier for everybody.
Right. And like you said, personalized nutrition is the way forward.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are lots of, there are things like B vitamins, the fats that we need from the animal protein. The protein profile as well is really important. So it really does depend on the individual. But if you're going to go vegan, it can work. But I really recommend optimizing your diet with a nutritional therapist or a nutritionist so that you can get the most out of your diet, so you don't fall deficient in certain areas.
Right. What's the second one?
Oh, the second one was the fact that calories in equals calories out.
Ah, okay, this is a big one in the fitness world.
Yeah.
That I don't agree with either. It's way like no way is food just calories, and people get obsessed with counting these calories.
Yeah.
And it's just not true, is it? Please crush this taboo with every cent that it's worth.
Yeah, so I just really can't stand it when people say that, because it's like if you ate a donut, but like if you had, I don't know how many calories a donut might have.
Let's say like 300 calories.
300 calories,
right.
Yeah. So if you had 300 calories in a donut versus 300 calories in a fillet of salmon, right? So those two different fat profiles, massively different. So your donut's going to be full of inflammatory fats, lots of trans fats as well, which are really terrible for you.
Right.
And the salmon has more omega fats, those omega-3 fats, and those are really healthy for being anti-inflammatory, right? So in every single cell membrane that you have in your body, the cell membrane is basically the wall of your cells.
Right.
Out of fats. So if we're not eating the right type of fats, your cells in your body are going to create either are going to create inflammatory chemicals, and that can be the starting point of certain inflammatory diseases, such as mental health disorders that we spoke about earlier. If you were to feed yourself with good fats, then you're going to have a much more healthier fat profile. So
would you say calories play a role at all? Sorry to interrupt you there.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it definitely does play a role. So if you were overeating, definitely, even if you're overeating, healthy food, you're gonna, if you're not gonna be able to use that energy, then you're going to put weight on.
Right.
However, I just think it's just, a little bit of an insult to the human body and the complexity of our bodies to say it's just calories out, because there are so many factors at play that say, if you were to eat a lump of sugar, that's going to cause problems with your, it might cause a spike in blood sugar, and that has repercussions, versus some healthy vegetables. I think it's really, really important.
100%. And it's kind of almost like faking the easy way out to a degree, to go, well, if I just eat less calories, I'll lose weight. And it's like, but if you just, just by taking 2 chips off your plate, you're still eating the chips. You're still eating, like you said, those transient fats, though you're still putting junk in your body. It brings to mind, actually, growing up watching movies or watching series, you'll always see when the girl or guy goes through a breakup, you'll see them sat on their bed eating junk food, or it's always part of the movie. Right? Eating junk food, or when someone is sad, they eat junk food. So no wonder then when we are going through those more difficult emotions, do we assume that that is what we turn to, when actually that is the worst time, and also for women when they're on their period, the worst time to put that kind of thing in your body. I mean, I don't think there is a good time to put that kind of thing in your body, and I'm sure you'll agree. But I wonder if the future is to shift this narrative that actually when we are struggling emotionally, mentally, that's the time to really nourish and rejuvenate with food, rather than so I almost see it as a form of self-harm, harming your body with this junk food. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. That is probably the worst time you could do to feed yourself with the junk food. But I understand why it happens is because when you're stressed, your levels of leptin is the hormone that controls your hunger. That gets downplayed or downregulated, so you're going to be more inclined to overeat. Because when you're stressed, I guess if we go back to the historical analogy where, if you were a cave person and the food is really scarce, if you're stressed in that state, you're probably gonna eat more so that you've got reserves, so that you don't starve to death. So I guess that's the reason why. I'm not entirely sure if it is, but I think I've listened to a podcast or an audiobook on that, but I believe that is the theory. So if you're in that state of stress, especially if you're in a breakup, I do definitely think it's more important to try your best and have nourishing foods so that you can dampen down the inflammatory responses that are happening in your body, and nourish your gut so that it can produce more happy hormone, serotonin, and it's really important to do so. But yeah, it is a sad thing that's portrayed in media. But imagine that in movies and TV shows, they start when a guy or girl goes through a breakup, they start eating carrot sticks or something.
Well, yeah, or just have a really nourishing, warming meal that gives you the kind of self-love that you require. And that is sort of a change I've tried to make in my life, that if I'm going through more difficult emotions, then actually, rather than turning to what I would when I was younger, junk food and Netflix series, is actually going into a lot of meditation time, reading, really cooking my food, nourishing myself, really taking time, because it feels really good, doesn't it, when you really take time to make a beautiful meal for yourself. It feels so nourishing when you've taken the time. Even if you don't consider yourself a cook, there is something so incredibly pleasing about cooking yourself a really nourishing, tasty meal. And there's got to be something in that as well, that informing healthy habits, surely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I always think I love cooking myself. I always encourage my clients to cook and to establish that relationship with food, because a lot of our cultures as well have been built around food. So it's really important to just feel the textures, smell the foods that we have, and chop them up, and just understand what goes in first and what goes in last. What if it's a garnish, that would go in last, because if it took that too long, that it's going to reduce break down all of the nutrients and cause nutrient loss. But if it's tougher legumes and tougher vegetables, they go in first. And just understand that the reasons why we would do things and cook things in certain stages, because it's all about optimal digesting it properly. And our cultures that we've come from understood that. So I think
and what you're saying there almost sounds like you're talking about taking your power back. In that knowledge is power. And I say with breath work, the more awareness you have, and breath work allows you to, of course, observe the patterning of your own mind, observe what is normal in terms of your bodily responses and your sensations, in that what is your state of homeostasis and equilibrium, and when are you out of balance, and can you recognize that? Can you then do something about it? And I think the same, it sounds like from what you're saying, goes with food, that, you know, if you can know how to cook and to feed yourself in an optimal way for your body, for no one else's, then you've got a step closer to gaining autonomy over your own health.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important. I encourage people to, like, if they are feeling some, you know, symptoms, I would encourage them to take a food diary and just write down their symptoms, what they're eating, what they're feeling, what symptoms are manifesting, and kind of connect the dots and see what's actually happening. So if I don't know, if eating wheat is causing bloating, then, you know, just track your symptoms, track what you're eating, and see whether cutting out wheat would cause some improvement for you. So, and I think that's worth doing, especially if you just do it over a week or two. Just understand whether it's causing you a problem. It's worth doing.
So it all starts with awareness then.
Yes.
Really, because like that food diary, it is awareness, even in terms of mindfulness, breathing, you know, be the same thing, is wake up and write down a couple of words. How are you feeling right now? Where are you at? And it doesn't need to be any kind of cheesy thing. It's quite literally just know, how am I feeling? Can I name it? Can I actually put that and label it and state it? And there's something empowering about that. I'm sure there's something very empowering as well about saying, I notice I have a pain here. Can I figure out what that is? Can I take control of that without needing to put anything synthetic or any sort of harmful chemicals in your body, or let it get to that stage when it's chronic?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really important. And I find that a lot of people kind of self-medicate with things like supplements. And I think before you get to that stage, you really need to iron out the diet first. So if you can get, you know, your nutrition from your food, definitely do it. I think like self-medicating with supplements needs to be something considered at a later stage. I personally mainly recommend supplements after doing testing, so that can actually see.
Right. I mean, that feels like a whole nother podcast episode we could talk about for hours. Supplements, that's a journey I've been on myself. I'm working with a naturopath who is great, but also I haven't yet been tested and gone through these tests to understand exactly what my body needs. And so to a degree, it's always going to be a guess until you've been tested and a trial and error. And I'd love to do something called the Dutch test, in terms of hormones and things, to just see what my body really needs and how to optimize. Because if you can get your health right, everything else becomes elevated in your life.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's really important. Like the Dutch test is one of my favorite functional tests to do. And
could you just explain to people listening, sorry, what the Dutch test is? You'll explain better than me.
Of course. So the Dutch test is a really comprehensive hormone test. It's a urine. You don't do it through urine samples. So we measure markers such as your hormones. So we look at your cortisol levels and whether your cortisol is at the right levels at certain times of the day. That's really important. We also look at your sex hormones. So with women who are suffering from things like period irregularities, PCOS, any PMS symptoms, PMDD, all sorts, even infertility. I think it's really important to understand where your sex hormones are at.
Right.
So that's the test that I do with my clients so that we can ascertain why they're feeling these symptoms. I think it's really important for women to optimize their cycle. I think a lot of women are getting into this like female biohacking.
Yes.
Yeah, you've heard of it. So
I'm so into female biohacking. I mean, that's a hugely broad term, and for anyone listening, biohacking means making small incremental changes to optimize your health. It includes things like bulletproof coffee, like cold exposure therapy, breath work, meditation, yoga, nutrition, all of the above. yourself, to optimize your health. But that's what we mean when we're talking about biohacking. But things like the Aura ring, this Dutch test we're talking about, that she's wearing one. Exactly. They are all forms of biomeasurements to track and to see what you need to do to have that heightened awareness almost of what you need to do. And it really is a revolution in terms of optimizing our health, and obviously can be quite expensive, but yeah, it's something I'm getting into more and more every single day. And like I said, I'm trying to have compassion with myself in terms of slowly making the changes and not going in all at once full speed. But I think biohacking is massive. It's incredibly important.
Yeah, because I mean, with women, I read I always recommend the book Period Power by Maisie Hill.
I've read it and it's freaking amazing.
I love that book. I actually listened to it as a podcast, and Maisie narrated it, and I absolutely loved it. But I loved her concept of like the spring, summer, autumn, and winter.
Yeah,
love that, because we are not optimal performers at every single point in the month, and that's okay. We just need to optimize our bodies, and just basically allow ourselves to like rest when we need to when at certain points in the cycle. But then when we're in our summer, when we're super I guess for me, I'm very
proactive.
Proactive. I'm really like up for everything. So maybe I would book more engagements in my summer and do more social stuff. But then when I'm in my winter, maybe I just want to just stay at home and not do too much, and that's all okay. And I think
that's meant to happen, and it's only society that has taught us that it should be otherwise, that capitalist view of more is more, when actually sometimes less is more. And actually we have evolved to live cyclically. Why on earth would we have sun, rain, snow, wind, and not actually relate ourselves to that we are nature? We're not separate, we are a part of nature. And so of course we are cyclical beings as well, both men and women. But of course with women it's extremely obvious because of the menstrual cycle. So I'm so with you on that. And eating cyclically is something, I think it'll honestly take me a good year to achieve properly eating with my cycle. But again, I'm just trying to make small changes and learn a little bit every day, read something new every day, or read something or listen to something, whether it be on social media or an article, podcast, and just keep, adding the more I learn, the more I will add into my life. And for me, that's a not too overwhelming way to do it.
I think baby steps are the way forward. We just can't, it's just not sustainable to do a radical change overnight. It's not.
New habits take time, and it takes a lot of determination to undo it. Otherwise everyone would do it and everyone would be walking around as a superhuman, right?
If only. But
exactly. All right, last question. What do you want to see for the future of nutrition in terms of how we approach our eating habits, especially in terms of gut health? Say you came back to me sort of 10 years from now and was like, I can't believe it, the world has revolutionized, healthcare's revolutionized. What do you want to see?
That's a really good question.
I know it's quite an expansive and broad question, but what needs to change in your opinion in our approach to how we eat?
When I definitely think our approach needs to be very diet focused. So thinking that food is our medicine. So we all know that quote, especially in the nutrition industry, we know that Hippocrates said food is medicine. Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food, and I think it's really important to understand that, that is the first point that we need to think of. We shouldn't be going, I feel this symptom and I don't feel very well, I'm going to go straight to my doctor who might prescribe certain drugs. Maybe we should dial it back a bit and just look at what's happening around us and understand what are you putting on your plate. Is it something that is going to fuel your body and nourish you, or is it going to cause stomach upset, or is it going to cause inflammation?
Yeah. Also, what is going on in your life in that moment that could be causing you certain stresses that could be prohibiting your digestion? You know?
Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely starts from there, your stress response. If you can't digest your food properly due to stress, then you're not going to be absorbing those nutrients. So
Absolutely.
look at your environment, understand, what's causing your stress. Are there, is there a need for things like counseling, more breath work and yoga and, Pilates, stuff that's gonna, disconnect you. I think that's really important.
Bring you home back to yourself for sure.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Yeah. Laura, where can people find you?
They can find me at lauralamnutrition.com, or you can follow me on Instagram, Laura Lam Nutrition. Lam is spelled with Lam. Many people get my last name spelled wrong and put a B on
Like with a B, like a bat.
Throughout my life, I've had everybody spelling my name Lam. Thank you very much.
Good, cool. And can people, if they have questions, just get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Yeah, just DM me, send me an email. You can find me very easily on the internet.
Yeah. And of course, I feel like we should shout out to Human, because we are both coaches on the Human team. New era of healthcare, an incredible new brand which has just been launched. And you can find out about that on both of our Instagrams. So it's been a pleasure. I've certainly learned a lot. Thank you so much for doing everything you do and continuing to spread such an important message. It's been awesome.
Thank you so much, Georgie. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.